Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our so expected webinar. Finally, the day has come. My name is Priscilla Tushinsky. I'll be here tonight with Dr. Haifa Maamar, our so special guest. I'm so happy to have her here. I could spend hours talking about her. She has an impressive curriculum, Dr. Haifa. I'm so happy to have you here. She is the Education Director for Emerging Technologies, overseeing all technology and gaming programs at Full Sail University. She will be sharing with us tonight so many things. I'm sure the audience is anxious and happy to have you here. I need to say that I'm very honored to be here with you tonight. I'm sure. Yeah, really. I'm sure you have a lot to share with us, with our audience. So I feel honored to be here and to be able to ask you anything that I want.
Yes, please so much. Ask your questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Haifa. Guys, please send us questions anytime you want, and I'll be asking Dr. Haifa all your doubts, and I'm sure she'll be happy to answer everything. We have 1 hour, so I won't talk too much. I will let her start sharing all her experience with you guys. Dr. Haifa, thank you again. You are at home. Please feel free to share all your experience with us.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me today with you guys. I'm so happy to be part of this event and to talk and share everything that we do, like share my background, share everything that we do at Full Sail University. So thank you for having me.
No, I'm happy.
And feel free to put your questions in the chat or send your questions. We're here to answer your questions.
Yeah. Everybody can send us questions to us and we'll be happy to answer all of that. I'm gonna start sharing your presentation and Dr. Haifa will tell me when I need to change the slides.
Sounds good. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Dr. Haifa Maamar. I'm the Education Director of Emerging Technologies at Full Sail University. And today's session is going to be about game user experience. So how the user experience field is so big, and we're always trying to use user experience in everything that we do. But when it comes to gaming, user experience has even more impact because we're all about looking how the game is affecting the user and so on. So the first part of the presentation will be about explaining what user experience is in general, and then how it applies to gaming. Next slide, please. So before going into the presentation, I wanted to talk about my background. And I'm hoping that you guys know all these flags. People told me that everyone in Brazil knows these flags because of soccer. So, so I'm hoping you know at least most of these flags. So the first one, I'm going to start from top left. That's the flag of France. And it's because I was born in France. I lived in France. But I am originally from Tunisia, which is the second flag, top right. So I did my high school, my school, entered high school in Tunisia, part of it in France, and then in Tunisia. And then after high school, I went to Canada, which is the third flag, and that's where I did my studies, my bachelor, master's, and PhD in computer and electrical engineering. And then after that, after I finished my PhD, my doctorate in computer and electrical engineering, I um, I uh, I went and worked for the stock exchange. I was the solution architect in the Montreal Stock Exchange, and I was building solutions, software solutions for the trading systems of Montreal Exchange, Toronto Exchange, London Exchange, Boston Exchange, New York Exchange, Milan Exchange, and Paris Exchange. And the way it works is that sometimes, as like you're trading in the stock exchange, sometimes you need to add either new products or new rules come out and so on. So it's very important that that trading system is able to detect if there are good actions happening, not good actions happening, if users are trying to play the system, play the trading system. Sometimes when there's an auction happening, it can drop the price and people will just go and buy it or sell it. So there are so many restrictions and regulations in stock exchange and in trading. So it's very important that we have a system, especially that everything is digital. It's very important that there is a system that can look at everything, make sure that everything is following the regulations. But then after that, I wanted to go back to education. I used to teach at the University of Ottawa, and I wanted to go back to education. And that's how I came to the US, and I joined Full Sail University. And at Full Sail University, I started as the course director, which is the professor teaching their mobile gaming masters during their final project. So I was part of my PhD, and I will explain in the next slide what my background is in terms of work. Part of my PhD was you can apply to gaming, and mobile gaming was a good application there, and it was easy for me to just jump into that and start helping students who were building mobile games as their final project. And then I also taught on campus their computer networks class. So everything in gaming and everything in software, that you need networked application, send data, receive data. For gaming, we're talking about MMOs. For other applications, it requires lots of different networked applications or and so on. So I was teaching the computer networks, and then I became the dean of the gaming and the computer science programs. And then I am now overseeing all the emerging tech programs at Full Sail University. And we have a big portfolio of tech programs. So we have the gaming program as the game design bachelors and masters, the game development bachelor. We have for the tech programs, we have the computer science, artificial intelligence, mobile development, web development, cybersecurity, information technology, and user experience is another program in there. So now I am overseeing all these programs, and my job is not only about the education or the programs. My job also is about looking for new ways how our students can have the best experience. So partnering with a lot of different companies like NASA, having my student work on NASA. We have we have another partnership that is Echelon Fit, where we open different facilities on campus. And we're working on smart fitness and artificial intelligence. We have lots of simulation and working with the military and with Advent Health University. This is another partnership that we have where we're going into the healthcare and making sure that we're using 3D printing, visualization, everything that is augmented reality and virtual reality and extended reality in general, where we're building different solutions for all these companies. So it's always like that's the part that I enjoy most about my background or my job right now, because I get to not only work with students and make sure that they're getting the best education, but also as they're going through the education, I'm trying to make sure that they're really doing real world projects and working with companies, which kind of facilitates later on their employment, as like if they work with a company, so it's easy for them after that to just maybe join that same company, because that company now knows them, they know the product that they've been working on, and it's easy for them. Next slide, please. So in this slide, it's kind of like a presentation of what I did during my my education. So we're gonna start with the left side image. And so in the left side, my PhD was about 3D streaming over mobile devices. It was a project with Defense Canada, and we were trying to make sure that first responders are ready if there is some kind of a catastrophic event that happens or anything that happens, that first responders know where the victims are and they can easily go to the victims and get them out. So one way to do it is that if there's some kind of a catastrophic that happened, you go and you throw the sensors will be able to take images, detect, so images and kind of thermal information. So knowing the body with its temperature, we can easily know if there is a body there. So detect where that, build a whole virtual environment that is then streamed to the first responders. They will have their, as they're going to the location, or they're still trying to figure out how to do, what to do, they have a first build of the virtual environment, and they can easily see how to save the victims. So that was the original project. But as I was working on 3D streaming over mobile devices, I'm always passionate about healthcare. I'm always looking to find a way. When I was young, I wanted to be a surgeon, and I really wanted like to be part, like I wanted to be a doctor. It's now like, yes, I am a doctor, but in engineering, it's not the same thing. But I always try, even though I am in engineering and I am in technology and emerging technologies, I always try to find a way how to bring back to healthcare and how to help people in health, like with their health. So the example that we worked on, which is as I said, the left side picture, is what we call exergaming. Exercise as you're playing games. And exercise, when we're talking about exergaming, there is a component of virtual reality that is in it. So we know that for obese kids, sometimes it's very difficult for them to stand up and exercise. Like they're not really motivated by it, but also they're not really social with other kids. But one way we notice that they can become social is if they are playing a game together, especially a video game together. So what we did is that we built an application that is exergaming, where kids, obese kids, can put the headset. They don't need to be in the same room. They put a headset, they join the same game together. Not only they're talking, they're playing together, collaborating and so on, but now we're asking them to stand up and make moves because there is an artificial component part of it that will detect what are you doing and telling you what to do. So that way we are helping them move and socialize at the same time. And that was exergaming. It's just like a small part of my PhD that I wanted to share with you, just to so that you know some of the projects I worked on. The next one that is top right, no, go back. The next
Sorry.
one, it's fine. The next picture, which is top right, that's a project that I worked on during my master's. My master's was on collaborative virtual environment for telesurgery applications. So telesurgery, it means performing surgeries at a distance. Everything is at a distance. In Canada and in so many other different like countries, part of the world, sometimes it's difficult to take the patient from one location to another to perform a surgery, whether it's means or like the weather condition or like how far it is and so on. So one thing that Canadian government started working on is that, well, we can train our surgeons to perform the surgeries at a distance. So the surgeon will perform a surgery on a virtual patient, and then there is a robot that performs the surgery on a real patient. somewhere else where the patient is. So, and what we built was a training system for these surgeons where here we had two telesurgery applications. We had the tracheectomy and we had a brain tumor, and the surgeon is able to perform the surgeries there, and then the robot is able to perform on a real patient. Of course, there is a lot of error that can happen, so that's why it's very important that the surgeon is trained well on how to do it, and the robot is trained very well how to do it as well. And then the last picture, bottom right, is what I did for my bachelor. And for my bachelor is I was passionate about robotics. And I wanted, so as you see, there is a lot of like different applications I went into, but robotics is another thing that I was passionate about. And the idea there is that robot, that picture, we had to assemble that whole robot together. We did it all from scratch. And so we had the circuit there, the camera, the sensors, everything we built it. And then also we built the digital, the program of it. And the idea was that the robot, we will trace a path on the floor, and then we will put obstacles on the floor. So the robot is supposed to follow that path or surround the obstacle or go around the obstacles, and all that information of the structure of the path or the direction of the path, the shape of the path, and the shape of the obstacles of the object are sent to a phone to let you know what was the shape, or the shape of the obstacle, or what was the path that was that the robot went on. So we're talking here, it's like in 2004 that I had to do that, and it was really I was really passionate about it, especially robotics. Next slide, please. So today's session is about user experience, and when we're talking user experience, is really how is the user perceiving any product that he's dealing with. So we're talking about the study of perception and the study of behavior of the users. So anything that you're interacting with requires user experience. Even the chair or the couch that you're right now sitting on. Is it a comfortable chair or couch? Is it rigid? What kind of color? Is it giving you any type of pain? All that is user experience. Like sometimes we all have at home, we have a spot where we want to go to right away to go sit in the family room. That's our favorite spot because it's comfortable. We know how it is. So, but we know that other spots are not that comfortable. So that's our perception and our behavior towards that object. But when it comes to digital applications or digital products, also, we have a whole behavior and a whole perception. So if we have an app on our phone, so sometimes when we download a new app, it's like, oh my gosh, why are these colors so bright? Or why is the font so big? I cannot really see, like it's too much, it's hurting my eyes. Or like, why can't I find the information? Usually the settings are like in the bottom or in the right, and the menu is over here on the left side, but why is it designed differently? So all of that is user experience. And usually companies, before they deploy or they put anything outside for the users, they need, if it is a good company, they need to do a whole user experience research. They need to collect data and decide whether they need to change their design or their interface or the way the navigation of that app is or the website. Sometimes it's very difficult to perform like an action, why it's taken so long for this to happen. All of that is user experience. So good companies need to always collect data and do a lot of research to just decide whether their app will have a good user experience or not. Next slide. So when we're talking about, we said user experience, it's really the study of perception and the study of behavior. So if we start by the study of perception, usually users will use their eyes to visualize things, especially when we're talking digital stuff. So we go to visual identifications of things. And we're trying always, when we see things, we're trying to find some kind of like a pattern that help us understand, okay, what's going on. So for example, like an interface is using two colors. It's very important that when we're building something or even a presentation, that we don't use all type of colors and all type of icons. We need to make sure that we're keeping things consistent. And because this is how we perceive data, this is how we deal with data, and that's what we call Gestalt principles. So Gestalt principles is all about how we are perceiving the data. So the first Gestalt principle is proximity. And proximity refers to how close elements are to one another. The strongest of proximity relationships are those between overlapping subjects. But just grouping objects into a single area can also have that strong proximity effect. So if they are together in one group, as we see in that example, I'm putting these together and these together, right away, you think that that group behaves in a certain way and the second group behaves in a different way because I separated them. There is a clear separation between them. The second Gestalt principle is similarity. And it's our human nature to group like things together. So in this Gestalt, similar elements are visually grouped regardless of their proximity. They don't need to be close to each other, but sometimes we group them because they have the same color, they have the same shape, or they have the same size. So sometimes they may not be close to each other, but we know right away that, okay, these objects, like in this example, I have the black ones. So right away I'm like, oh, okay, that black ones is a group that is supposed to behave differently than the group that is white. Then that for me, like in my mind, sometimes you don't think it, but in your mind right away, you will think, okay, these are white, these are black. So there is a separation. If you did it that way, that it means that those are separate. And then right away, I will think that behaviors should be similar. Enclosure explains how we perceive object enclosed within a common area implementation as groups. So enclosure can be achieved by encoding a transparent area implementation with visible boundaries. So you see here that in that group, I had a transparent one that is on the left with just that rectangle that is gray, like dark gray. So I'm thinking that those two, if they were grouped together, if I put them that way together, that means that they are different from the other group. But also I had another enclosure where I grouped the three to the right together with another shape. So that means that that group is different from the middle group that is different from the left group. This is what we call enclosure. The fourth Gestalt is the connection principle that states that humans group elements when they are connected to each other. So elements that are connected visually are seen as more related than elements that are not connected. So in this case, you see that I connected those four dots together. So those four dots for me have kind of a similar behavior. They are related in some way compared to the other dots that are not connected. So this is what that Gestalt means. Continuity is another Gestalt, and it means that the human eye will follow the smoothest path when viewing lines, regardless of how these lines were actually drawn. So as you see that line, you see that like you're continuing, your eye is following that path regardless of how it is. Like we see, okay, those are going together. So this is how I'm gonna look and perceive that thing. Next one is the closure. And for me, it's one of the coolest Gestalt principles. It's the idea that your brain will fill in the missing part of a design of an image to create a whole. So sometimes this gestalt is used in logos, and I will show you an example in the next slide. And it's just like, if you focus, you won't see like the whole line, but your eyes and your brain finished that line for you, and it made it that way. The next one is the figure ground principle. It's again another example of gestalt principle, but like it takes advantage of how you perceive the positive space versus the negative space. And I will show you like an example of this in the next slide so that you understand what I really mean. And the common fate, it means that the objects functioning or moving in the same direction appear to belong together. So we have here those who are with an arrow looking up, those are the same, have the same fate, so they will be moving in that direction, versus the other ones that are, okay, then I'm gonna group them that like they have the same fate. Next slide, please. So this is a law of closure. If you look here, and this is one of the logos, if you look here, you see that it's a panda, but you see in the top that the lines haven't been completely drawn. You see that the head is not completely drawn, the back is not completely drawn, the face is not completely drawn, but your eyes and your brain right away noted that this is a panda, and you were able to recognize this. Even though it's not completely done, you were able, your brain was able to do all of it. Next one. And let's look at the one in the right. So this is an example of a law of figure ground. So if you focus on the black side, so focus on the black. If you focus on the black, I'm going to give you a minute to look at that. You will see that it is a tree, and you have some birds flying, and you have some butterflies in the tree, and so on. That's all if you focus on the black. But now, if you focus on the white, then you will see that there is a gorilla and there is a lion looking at each other, and you're not looking at the black anymore. This is a way how your brain focuses on things. So depending on like the feeling that you want to give to the user. So you want to, if you're focusing on the black, oh, I'm seeing a tree and I'm seeing a butterfly and I'm like really feeling well and so on. So it's kind of like a peaceful thing. But then if you look at the white, it's like, oh my gosh, like we're looking at two animals. They're really trying, like they're about to start fighting. It's giving you that like kind of like you're feeling uncomfortable looking at those. So look at how you are perceiving these things. One is like peaceful, and one is like, oh, okay, I'm not feeling that comfortable about this. A fight is about to start. Now, if we look at the left side, if we focus on the dark side of it, I'm going to give you a moment. Focus on the dark. Oh, you don't see the lion? Okay, so let's look at the right side and look at the white only. Just focus your eyes on the white. You will see under the tree, you will see a big head of a gorilla and a big head of the gorilla on the left and a big head of a lion on the right. Tell me if you see that. I'm just going to give you a moment. Okay, good. You can see it. Okay, perfect. And then now if we look at the left picture, let's focus on the dark side of it. The dark side of it, I'm going to give you a moment. Focus on that. You will see a wolf and you will see a bird standing in front of the wolf. However, if you focus on the white side of it, inside the wolf, you will see the head of a man.
That is so cool, Dr. Haifa. It's impressive. It's amazing, really. We're
Yeah,
loving it.
I'm reading
The comments.
comments to make sure that we're good to go. I want to make sure
Yeah,
that you guys see this.
it's awesome.
Okay, cool. Okay, then if you guys are good, then let's go to the next slide. So when we're talking, we said user experience is all about perception. So now we talked about perception and how we're going to be perceiving things based on the different gestalt and how we're grouping things together. But we also talked about behavior. How is the how is the user behaving with the information we're given him? So that's what we call behavior psychology. And what do the user think and how do they behave? And in order to understand how the users think and behave, we need to conduct a lot of focus groups, like lots of surveys, lots of research, where we're asking questions, bringing them to a group, to like on site, and having them try that and noting everything that they're doing and how they're behaving to that. We can even do telemetry. Telemetry is all about making sure that we're taking into account also their health. Like, how is it perceived from a health perspective? Is it giving them like anxiety? Is it increasing their their heartbeats? Is it giving like, are they sweating when they're dealing with this? Are they happy? All of that is part of behavior and meta research and surveys. So it's very important that we conduct these research and focus groups to collect the data. That will help us decide if our product is good. Is it going to help the user or not? No one wants to to develop a product and put it in the market, and we're going to have bad reviews, or nobody is going to buy it, nobody is going to be interested in it. Like, that's a waste of someone's money, a company's money, and everything. We don't want that. So it's very important that we do behavioral psychology and behavior research, so we understand if that we're the users are having a good experience as they're going. So all of that is user experience in general. But now we need to talk about game UX. How is that all applied when we're talking about gaming? So when we're talking about gaming, it's very important to understand that, of course, you want your game to be fun. You want it to be engaging. Nobody wants to play a game that's very difficult and you're going to be bullied in it, or no one wants to play a game that is not fun. It's going to make you depressed. No one wants to play a game that's very easy, especially for gamers. No one wants an easy game. Like, they want to have a good level of engagement, good emotions, and a good fun. So it's very important when we're implementing a game and designing a game that we're measuring the fun, the engagement, and the emotion of what we're doing. Because we're trying to make sure that our players are going to come back. We know that in gaming, like, players will play a game for like years, they will come back. We all have our favorite games, and because we had a good experience as we're playing that game. So that's why it's very important to measure the fun, the engagement, and the emotions. But sometimes also we need to think about unsolved context and unfamiliar context. What that means is that, there are some games that nowadays they help people go through grief. If somebody dies, and like, it's very difficult for them to go through like that grief, games can help with that. Or to help with depression. People are dealing with depression. There are games that help with depression. So we want to make sure that our design is really helping these players. It's not making things even worse. You don't want to make someone play a game that is supposed to help him with grief feel even bad, more depressed. You don't want someone who's depressed even feeling more depressed, and then we're going to be dealing with a lot of other issues, psychological issues. So it's very important that as you're designing something like this, First of all, you need to have subject matter experts working with psychologists, making sure that wherever you're putting in your game, that it's helping your player. It's not making your player even feel worse than before. Some games also have a narrative that is they're heavy in narrative. But sometimes when we're like playing a game, sometimes maybe we're not hitting that narrative. So it's very important that we do a whole user experience to make sure, are we hitting that narrative? If we said that we're gonna go from one level to that level, and that second level we're supposed to be in this castle, and we're supposed to meet this boss, and we're supposed to help this person, are we hitting that narrative or we're not? We're like getting away, we're just focused on the games and the mechanics and the level, and we're not even meeting the narrative of the game. So it's very important to think about that as well. Some games are not that heavy in narrative. It's all about like just like a fight game or something. So it's not that big into narrative. So but other games are very heavy into narrative, so you need to make sure that you're testing your narrative as well. And then when we're talking about monetization, you want to make sure that um, uh, you're monetizing your game correctly. You don't want things to be cheap, or also you don't want things to be very expensive, because in both ways you're going to lose players. If it's very expensive, people are really going to think twice, three times, four times before putting that money to buy whatever, like whatever that, like extra features, extra upgrades, and so on for your game. You don't want that. But also, if it's very cheap, then like they're gonna think it's like, oh, if it's very cheap, so maybe it's not that important to do it. So you always have to think about monetizing effectively your game. And then the last thing is, how do you personalize your player experience? Everyone, even here at Full Sail, when I go and talk to my students and ask them, why do you want to join game design? Why do you want to join game development? Why are you in gaming? Why do you want to study gaming? They all were, a common answer that comes to me is like, I was going through a hard time before, and games changed my life. Games helped me go through that time. It helped me cope with my experience. So it's very important that as you're designing games, you're personalizing that player experience, understanding who are your players, understanding who is your audience, and making sure that you have components in your game that connect to that audience. So, like for example, like if we're talking about a game that is for kids, you need to make sure that you are using language for kids, things that kids like. Like you cannot put something horror in a kids thing. Like you need to connect and personalize that player experience. Next slide. So let's do examples. I know that you earlier wanted examples about the gestalt. So let's look at this image, and I'm gonna give you 3 minutes. I want you to tell me some of the gestalts that you see in this image. Remember, there are different ones. There is similarity, there is continuity, there is common fate, there is what else? Closure, enclosure. There are different ones. So think, look at the image, and tell me, what do you see? Feel free to put your comments in the chat.
You have 3 minutes, guys. Come on. We want to see what you think.
Monster attack. Okay. Shadows and walls, very good. Lights.
Guys, she will answer all your questions in the end, but keep sending us.
I love your question, Jennifer. I will let you know.
Yeah, stay until the end, Jennifer, please.
Okay, so let's put the next slide. So we have three laws of Gestalt's there. We have similarity, continuity, and common fate. Pri, can you go back to the earlier slide? Maybe it's better if they see it when it's big. Okay, so first one here is that similarity. We have, if you see in the left top, you have that enemy or two enemies there that are launching two missiles compared to the big boss that's in front of you. So you know there that an attack coming from a big boss is different and probably way more destructive for you than the attack coming from the other boss or the other enemy that is on the top left. And then when you look at the missiles that are coming out from the top left enemy, you see how you have two missiles going together. So that's continuity. They are going together towards the same direction. So that's another one where we're looking at, okay, so they are going together. There is no missile who's going to come my way and the other missile is going the other way. No, like they are going together. They're probably going to turn together, but we know that continuity of those two missiles compared to a missile that's going to come from your big boss is probably geared towards you. So that's a different one. And then you have some kind of enclosure. You see that your big boss is in front of you. So he's kind of closer and closer, but then the other ones are in a different area. I saw it earlier where we're talking about lights and walls. That's very good because yes, in this image specifically, we're talking about that one, he is way on the side versus this one who is completely in front of me, closer to me. Then probably what I want to do is that take care of this one that is in front of me right away before I look into the other ones. This is how we should perceive these things. Let's go to the next picture. Next one. Okay. So let's look at this. I'm going to give you 2 minutes this time. Or actually 1 minute. I'm looking at the time.
Don't worry, we have time, Dr. Haifa. If we pass a little, it's not a problem.
Okay. Okay. So here, let's look, next slide, please. So we have different things that we can look at. First one is law of continuity. And you can see that from the lines on the top. You see how those lines are coming? Yes, very good, Larissa. It's continuity. Yes, because it's telling you where the player is supposed to go. So that's a continuity one. Another thing is law of enclosure. You see in the top left, you have a separation you have one part that is closer to the user versus another part that is far from the user. So that's an enclosure. And then we're talking proximity, probably things that are closer to me I need to deal with first versus other things that are far from me, then I have to deal with that next. Next slide. Let's look at this. 30 seconds. Come on, people, quick.
YouTube, you need to analyze the image based on what Dr. Haifa was teaching us. What do you see?
The different Gestalt principles. So we have similarity, continuity, common faith, proximity, enclosure, closure. Okay, so here we see that we have, yes, we have layers. Very good, Amico. So we have proximity, yes. What we do have here is that we have different enemies. First thing, we're going to start with similarity. Similarity is you see that you have blue skulls. Those are probably behaving similarly because I used blue skulls compared to the other enemies that are red and blue that are not skulls. So that's similarity. Then we have proximity, which is it was provided suggested by some of you. So proximity, yes, you have the ones that are in the front line. Probably we need to take care of them first versus the other ones that are in the back. But then also, if you keep looking, you see that there is a tent. So those that are, so we're talking in the right side of the image. Those two enemies are in a tent, and they are separated by a tent and a bush from the other enemies. So for me, right away, I'm like, oh, okay, I see the first two that are in the front, probably I need to take care of them. And these three that are blue skulls are different from the other ones that are in the back. For some reason, I see one that is red, colored red compared to everyone else that is blue. So, oh, then that one is behaving differently from everyone else, even though they're blue skulls and different things. But that red, probably it means that it's more difficult to combat. And then I am seeing two skulls in the tent versus everyone else that is outside. So maybe I'm looking at different behaviors also for these. So this is how I am perceiving these things. Next slide. I already explained this. You can go to the next. Okay, so let's look at this. 30 seconds again. Okay, so here we're looking at different enemies. We're dealing with proximity for sure, because we have people that are closer and to me compared to other people that are, so the dog is closer than the other two men. But I don't know if you see it in the image, but there are also other enemies in the house. So I am probably, okay, those are proximity. So it's enclosure as well. We have an enclosure, people in the house versus people that are outside. One is closer to me, that is proximity versus the other one. So, and there is, if you see in the image back towards the center, there is one enemy as well by the tree. It's hidden. So that enemy is farther compared to the others. So I need to take care of those first, probably the dog first, then the two men, then that man who is in the back, then the people in the house. That's how I am perceiving things. I hope you see that. Okay, next. So part of our job, or my job at Full Sail, is also to go to conferences, and we need to make sure that we're like listening to all the new trends in emerging technologies and in gaming and following what's going on. We need to make sure that our students are like, we update our curriculum fast. So we need to make sure that we're listening to companies, listening to kind of issues or concerns they're dealing with, so that we make sure that our students are aware of them, they know how to tackle these concerns and so on. So recently, in actually this year in GDC, which is the game developer company, the game developer conference that happens in San Francisco every year, we went, a group of emerging tech, and we attended Dana Nightingale talk. She is a campaign designer with Arcane. And she was talking about a specific problem that they had to deal with in Deathloop. So you can go to the next slide, please. So she was talking as like they need to do like a user research for their Deathloop, a game that was about to come out. Of course, as I said, any company that is dealing with like big players and a lot of players, you always need to make sure, and not only like a lot of players, not only AAA companies, any company need to think always about user research, because again, you don't want to make sure, you don't want your players, whether in game or any product, you don't want people to go away from it. So they conducted a user research on their game that was about to get released in the next month. And their user research revealed so many problems that they needed to like really pay attention to and figure out how to fix it. So they identified the problems and then put together a strike team to make sure that they have those goals. They need to handle these problems, solve these problems, and they knew that they had these limitations. So they knew clear goals. These are the limitations. We're just going to go and do it, and we're going to be done. After they did that, so like they came up with a solution and so on, after they have everything implemented, they decided to go on an additional round of feedback. But that additional round of feedback and user research came up with more problems that they needed to address. And things got intense, because when we're talking about players testing, so you have, usually when we do user research, especially with big companies, they select their best players that played that game. They're called the beta team. They will go and they will start playing that game and come in, like telling them what kind of issues, and then these issues are like addressed right away. But then the feedback became so intense that the company decided to just finish the game blind. They're not going to take into account anymore because they were wasting so much time. And at some point, the company needs to decide that like, it's done. I am moving forward with this release. Next slide. So all of this to say that game UX is different from a regular UX. When we're talking about game UX, it doesn't mean that you need to make things easy for people. Remember when I said that like user experience, we want to make sure that the user is having a good experience, things are easy for him to find and easy to navigate and so on. That doesn't mean that we want to make it intuitive for the player. No, because when we're playing game, we are passionate about that game. Players are so passionate about that game. They love that game. They get into that game. They're connected to that game with their player experience. So it's very important to understand that yes, you're going to take that feedback in game UX, and of course you need to do some user research. This whole field, it's still evolving. Games are expensive to make, so you need to make sure that your feedback is taken, the feedback of the players is taken into account, because if it's a common feedback that's coming back, it means that there is real issue. But also you need to make sure that to release your game anyway at some point, you need to make sure that it's important, but sometimes you just need to let it go. So yes, tech is constantly changing, so we're always evolving, and games are always the early adopters for the new tech. And it's all about passion and love. but it's also very expensive to make a game. So think about your game UX. Don't make things easy. Don't make things intuitive. Not everything works for games. As a regular user experience, not anything from a regular user experience will work fine for games. You need to make sure that you're conducting your own user research before you release any game. That's it. And that's my talk. Questions?
Oh, I was muted. Dr. Haifa. I think I'll put the questions here and we can read it. Let's start with Jennifer because she asked it a long time ago.
Okay, I'm trying to see. How would
It's
you
on the
say?
screen.
Okay. How would you say we can know our audience before launching the product? I mean, let's say I want to launch it. How would I go about choosing my audience like now? Okay. Okay. So you're thinking about a gaming app. Well, your gaming app, like, is it for kids? Is it for teenagers? Is it for older people? Is it for elderly people? That's first of all your game, like your audience. So deciding what's that range of like age range you're going to be dealing with. When we're talking about kids, you need to be very careful because kids are very sensitive. There's a whole research of not giving like games and devices and phones to kids. But like, what is it that you're trying to do? If we're talking about kids, if we're talking about later like ages, like adults and males for 30, 40, yes, good. But then we're talking about living in an area. What is it specific about that area? Is that like we're talking about probably culture? Like designing a game for the US is not the same as designing a game for Brazilian, especially if you're going to add culture to it. Something that relates to you. Something for me, like I am Tunisian. So if I see something that relates to me, like you will probably add something that like your environment is in Tunisia. So I am going to see some stuff that will help me understand that this is for Tunisia and so on. So it helps me understand that that's for me. So you have, before you start even thinking about your game and designing and developing your game, your number one thing is deciding who's your audience. You cannot implement the game and think about your audience after that. It should be audience first, come with the design, do your research, and then start implementing your game.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Haifa. Another one now from Edward. How do you keep updated with all fast changes? It's a bit overwhelming, isn't it?
It is overwhelming. So, like for me specifically, I read a lot. I am always like I have in my emails like different journals or updates that I get constantly to my email, so I can read quickly and know what's going on. I am following big companies, for example, like I'm all about virtual reality, augmented reality, the metaverse. So if there is something like this, so I am following always the big people who are in this field. So in LinkedIn, you see me on LinkedIn, I will be following specific groups. I like VR and AR. I will follow VR AR Association. I like metaverse. I am following Kathy Hackle. I like anything military. So I will be following different groups about the military and what they're doing in simulation. So this is how you keep track. That's one. But then a second one also is going to conferences. Going to conferences will help you. Usually when there is a big expo as well, or people talking about new things that they're doing, that's a way to keep track of what's going on. If we were talking about new technology, I would say look at a company like a company, for example, like for headsets. We're always looking for like HoloLens, like is it coming out or not? Magic Leap, do they have their headset out or not? HP, which kind of headset they have. So we're always trying to follow what is out there. Definitely, we're not going to go after everything. We have to test first things and then decide where we're going. And at Full Sail, we try to keep track of the technology that's changing. So, for example, we have mobile development. We're like teaching them iOS and Android. So we know that iOS, they have a yearly change update every year. And every time there is a new update that's coming out, our courses get updated right away because we want to make sure that our students, by the time they graduate, they are already familiar with that update that is out. People usually in companies don't want to hire students who are not familiar with new updates, especially when it comes to iOS. Like there are so many different features, different things that are there. So we need to make sure that we're following the updates, updating our courses quickly, and then so that students graduating with the new stuff.
Okay, thank you. Another one from 2P Boxing. Is it common for companies from different industries to sponsor game creation projects as a way to get in touch with users? Is it a good marketing strategy? I think it's asking if creating a game as a marketing strategy, it's a good way to get in touch with users if you have this
Yes,
knowledge, if they are
yes,
creating. Yeah.
yes. So gamifying things is very important. It's funny. I was in a meeting recently, and it's about like how you know how you go to um, like a grocery store. I don't know, like I don't know if you have Walmart, Carrefour, whatever, like those things that like different grocery stores.
We are talking for all Latin America, so it's all different
So
kind of stores. Yeah.
yeah, so there is a big like different grocery stores that exist, and now grocery stores, what they're doing, sometimes company will go because they want to display their product. So they're trying to have the users try their product using a game. Usually it involves virtual reality or augmented reality. That's how, like for them, they're gonna try their product by playing that game, and if you win, then you will buy that or you will get that. So always gamifying things is very important. It's a good marketing strategy, obviously.
2P Boxing is also asking about how to start a career. Not only Brazilian, but let's think about Latin American students.
Okay.
What's
How
the
to start a
path?
career? What do you
Yeah,
mean? Career in what? Like in like
how to
once you
start a
graduate?
career? What kind of courses do they need? Is a bachelor? Is technical courses accepted by the industry?
In
Um,
gaming?
yeah, in
In
gaming,
gaming, I would say a bachelor is
a
important.
bachelor. Mm-hmm.
A bachelor, you have different bachelors, whether it's a bachelor in game design
Mm-hmm.
or a bachelor in game development. And the difference
Mm-hmm.
is one in game design, we're talking about the mechanics, the levels, like kind of the physics, of prototyping of how the game it should be. And then in the game development, is now we're developing the whole game from
Mm-hmm.
scratch. Usually in a studio, you will find a couple of designers, but way more developers because designers will come up with like the level, how it should be, how it should uh, like how the player should navigate that level. How
Mm-hmm.
are we? Is it fun? Is it engaging? A prototype of it, and then once it's approved, then it goes to the developers. Now they're going to develop the entire game.
And Dr. Haifa, does the industry has like age limit? Because I see a lot of young people working in this, but I have friends who are like 30 years old that are not very happy in their careers. Can
Yeah.
they like make a life changing and start working in this?
Of course, they can make a life change. There is no age limit when it comes to technology. Anyone can join, like do make a life change and join. We have actually here in the U.S. we have veterans, so people who go in the military and then they come back and they want to change careers. Most of them you will find them in the tech field, and the two big fields are game and cybersecurity. So this is how earlier when I talked about people who were talking about how games changed their life, I was talking about veterans who were like overseas, so
Mm-hmm.
they have nothing to do, but games help them go through that whole
Yeah,
experience.
sure,
So,
sure.
yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Another question from Edward. Could you recommend maybe two or three companies that have relevant newsletters for the gaming industry? If you want to put in the chat, I can send
So
them.
I would say two, three companies. Follow GDC. That's your Game Developer Conference. If you can have GDC Vault, but that's not a company. I will say Insomniac Games, Riot. So Insomniac Games is
Riot
one.
in
Riot,
Sonia. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then EA. You know,
Mm-hmm.
probably you all play FIFA and NBA and like
I'm sure.
so. So EA is another one that that always puts out, like, there are so many companies, but I would say Insomniac, Riot, FIFA, not FIFA, EA, sorry. Trying to think, Ubisoft. These are
Mm-hmm.
like Epic Games. Epic
Epic
Games,
Games.
Fortnite, and so on. So that also is a big company. So Epic Games, Insomniac, EA, Ubisoft. Yeah.
Uni YouTube is asking about what is the best country for game designers. And I was thinking, Dr. Haifa, because when we talk about Latin America, we don't, I might be wrong. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I see that the biggest companies are not here, are in the US. And the people that are working in this area, do they have to leave their country, or they can have like remote jobs?
They
And
can have remote jobs. So I
yeah.
know a lot of people. I know Ubisoft, for example, is one of the Ubisoft is in Canada. They're hiring. They're always hiring from the entire globe. So I know they hire from Europe. They hire from like they even hire from Tunisia. I know a guy who like was hired from Tunisia. They hire, like, they are in Canada. They hire from the US. They hire from everywhere, whether it's a contract job or even regularly. The good thing about technology is that you don't need to move sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like now, most of these companies are how to say it, like they're hiring remote people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing, another company now, like I remember Blizzard is a big thing that like also you can follow.
Okay. And we have another question about jobs, that it's if they are hiring most for specific projects, or um, for like fixed jobs, or fixed. I think they're,
Okay,
if
so
it's asking if
I
it's only for projects, but
no, I don't think for projects. So actually, what it goes with is skills. What kind of
mm-hmm.
skills do you have? Are you a developer that like you can work on develop a development team? Are you in quality assurance?
Mm-hmm.
Where like you're testing? Are you a user experience engineer or analyst? Where like you're working on that? Are you a designer? And in games, don't limit yourself to game design. You know, IT is a big thing in game design, in gaming in general, because now we have networked games. They all need servers and cloud. So IT is big. Cybersecurity is big in games right now, because we need to make sure that the information of our players and financial information is secure. So don't limit yourself to just game design or game development. There are so many different fields that help you to work in the gaming industry.
And what about the salaries, Dr. Haifam? What can someone expect? How much?
Well, it depends on the studios, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
this is depending on the studios and where we are, whether are you in the US or
Mm-hmm.
in Europe or Latin America. I would say always when it comes to skills, the two or the three fields that pay the most are development, IT, and cybersecurity in gaming. I'm talking gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Mm-hmm.
in development, you need a lot of developers. So it's very important that developers are always the highest paid. IT and cyber as well, because we need servers, we need clouds, we need to make sure that the information is secure. So all that is very important to keep. So yeah, so those are the three big, I would say, like the highest salaries.
And last question here from To Be Boxing: how many years or months it's necessary to take an idea from the paper to a real game for the user with a small team?
Depending on your skills, depending on what you know. Are you a developer? Who is your team? Like, are you quick about things? How much experience do you have? Are you using an engine? Like, if you're using Unreal Engine or Unity, how experienced you are? So sometimes actually, like even if it's a small team, but if you're experienced, it can be quick to like just implement everything and get it out. But if you don't have that experience, then you're gonna require time to find the right team, to know how to implement things, to learn everything, and then get it out.
And I know that Full Sail has a Hall of Fame, guys. If you want to check on their website, right, Dr. Haifa? It's
Yes,
really
yes.
good.
Yeah, we have a Hall of Fame. We have a lot of our gamer graduates actually from the game design and game development programs that are on the Hall of Fame. So every year, the way it works is that we have a list of Hall of Famers that we vote on, and then they come and they are selected based on their experience in the field, what they've done, what like kind of like their journey in the field, and that's how they get to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, really nice. Guys, our team is posting on the chat two websites, one for Brazil, another for Colombia. So if you are interested and if you want to know more about all the courses Full Sail has to offer for you, please access the site and ask for being contacted. I'm sure they will contact you in one day most, and you have all the info about the courses and prices and everything. Dr. Haifa, 1 hour is it flies. I don't know what happens. It was so good.
Thank you. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed it.
We
I enjoyed it
did.
so much myself.
I loved it. I thought I need to say I am gonna be honest. I was thinking, oh my God, I know nothing about games. I'm gonna be like traveling, and I was impressed. It was really good. You talk to people who know like have no base, It was really good. Really
I'm
good.
so happy to hear you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for saying
I
that.
think our audience love it too because they send a lot of comments and
Thank
questions,
you.
and I hope we can have another moment like this to talk more and you can share
Sure.
maybe
Sure. Yeah. You
something
let me
else with
know.
us.
Yeah, you let me know what kind of topics you guys are interested in, and Carol will probably like put this together for us.
I will love it. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hafa. Everybody, thank you so much. I hope you have a incredible night because it's night here in Brazil and Latin America already. So I hope to see you guys soon. And please access the site that our team posted on the chat and ask to be contacted. Thank you and
Thank
see you
you.
next time. Bye,
Have
Dr.
a good
Haifa. Thank you so much.